Runner, very bright, very sharp guy. Actually worked at KYW in Philadelphia as a TV producer. He hired Jessica Savage.
Why did you decide to take up the game of tennis?
Tennis, because I thought I would be good at it. I think I will be good at it. About a year from now, I think I'll go with Jimmy Connor's 200,000.
How'd you get here?
I followed you. JJ, who is it? JJ, what a super name.
It's a little girl from the bus.
For decades, Jimmie Walker was much more than just a face on American television. For millions, he was J.J. Evans, the irreverent young man from Good Times whose catchphrase, "Dynamite," echoed in living rooms across the country. But behind the laughter and lights, there were rumors, conflicts and choices that transformed him into one of television's most controversial figures. Today, at 78 after a long silence, Walker has finally decided to speak out. And the truth? It's even more surprising than anyone could have imagined. Bronx, New York, 1947. In a neighborhood where car horns lulled people to sleep, James Carter Walker Jr. was born, a black boy who would one day make all of America laugh. His childhood was far from Hollywood glamour. His mother worked exhausting jobs, his father was absent, and the family struggled daily for survival. "We had nothing but hope," Walker would recall years later. "If you didn't find a way out, the Bronx swallowed you whole." It was this harsh reality that pushed the skinny kid to dream of something bigger. In 1964, at 17, Walker heard a stand-up comedy show on the radio. It was a revelation. Without formal education, without teachers, Jimmy simply stood in front of the mirror, practicing each expression, each pause, each nuance of timing. Without money and connections, all he had was his voice and a natural talent for self-deprecating humor that made audiences double over with laughter. Walker quickly realized that laughter had a transformative power. It turned a poor kid into the center of attention in any room. By the late 60s, he was testing his material in small New York nightclubs. And it was in these smoke-filled clubs that he perfected each joke, each timing, sculpting a unique style that would soon catch the attention of one of America's greatest TV producers. In the early 1970s, American television was beginning to look for ways to bring more black representation to screens. Shows like Sanford and Son and The Jeffersons paved the way for a new generation of sitcoms that weren't just entertaining, but also reflections of society. In this context, Norman Lear, the legendary mind behind All in the Family, was preparing a new project, Good Times. Lear wanted a young, funny and different character, and Jimmie Walker, the skinny kid from the Bronx, caught his attention. Not much was expected from Walker initially, but when he auditioned with his improvised style, Lear burst into laughter. The decision was immediate. Walker would be J.J. Evans, a character who brought the raw energy of the streets directly to the screen. Good Times premiered in 1974. At first, J.J. was just a supporting character. But everything changed when, during a taping, Walker shouted, "Dynamite!" in his shrill voice. The audience erupted in laughter. CBS immediately asked the writers to include the catchphrase in future episodes. Within months, "Dynamite" spread across America. Children shouted it on playgrounds, adults repeated it in bars, and even President Gerald Ford had heard about it. From an unknown comedian, Walker transformed into a national star virtually overnight. Time magazine called Dynamite proof of the unifying power of American television, but meteoric fame cast a giant shadow. Walker was just over 20 when Good Times reached its peak ratings. In a single season, Jimmie Walker went from an obscure comedian to a national celebrity. He appeared in Time, TV Guide, was invited to talk shows across the country, and even performed for the president, but those dazzling spotlights soon began to burn his relationships, planting seeds of turbulence that would explode behind the scenes. "Dynamite" became a national catchphrase, and Jimmie Walker was suddenly the brightest star. CBS celebrated the ratings, but backstage, tensions were already brewing. JJ's role quickly began to overshadow the parent characters. Played by Esther Roller and John Amos, both were experienced actors who believed Good Times had been created to portray the real struggles of a black family, showing resilience and love in the face of hardship. But Walker's JJ was increasingly being transformed into a buffoon. In a 1975 interview with Ebony magazine, Esther Roll didn't hide her frustration. JJ is not a role model. He's a clown. We don't need clowns. We need characters with depth, with responsibility, who truly represent black people. That statement was like a dagger pointed directly at Jimmie Walker's image. John Amos, who played Father James Evans, also openly clashed with the writers and producers, insisting that the show had turned into a joke that demeaned the image of black people. In 1976, after just 2 seasons, John Amos left Good Times. The news shocked the audience. Many believed he left because his character was killed off, but in later interviews, Amos admitted, "I couldn't continue being part of a show where the son JJ was being written as a clown. It betrayed everything we were trying to build." CBS responded by writing James Evans out of the script in a car accident. Fans were stunned. The media labeled Walker CBS's golden child, the star protected at all costs, even if it meant his colleagues had to leave. Shortly after, Esther Roll also stepped away. She told the New York Times, "I can't stay on a show where laughs matter more than truth." For 2 seasons, her character, Florida Evans, was absent, and the show plunged into an identity crisis. Ratings dropped, and CBS was eventually forced to bring Roll back for the final season. But for Walker, the damage was already done. The distance between him and Roller had solidified into a permanent fracture. After Good Times ended in 1979, rumors spread that Walker and Roll had cut ties, never speaking again. Many fans noted Walker's absence at Roll's funeral in 1998, and articles claimed he deliberately stayed away to avoid confronting the past. Walker chose silence. No clarification, no apologies. For almost 4 decades, he seemed content to let the public write its own story. And that silence only made speculation more mysterious. Fans believed Roller and Walker remained estranged until the end. Hollywood saw it as a classic example of the divisions that plagued early black sitcoms. Then, at 78, after more than 4 decades of silence, Walker finally spoke in a rare interview. He admitted that Esther Roll really didn't like how JJ was written, and yes, there had always been a distance between them that could never be bridged. But Walker also added, "Esther didn't hate me personally. She hated the way the writers wrote the character. We weren't enemies, but we were never close." For the first time, Walker broke down the wall of silence. For decades, the public had only heard rumors, had only seen harsh words. Now, almost at 80, he finally acknowledged that the fractures behind Good Times were real, and that they had shaped both his career and his life. While most black artists in Hollywood chose to align with the Democratic Party, seeing it as a natural extension of a community tied to the civil rights movement, Jimmie Walker went in the completely opposite direction. He didn't just silently cast his vote, but publicly declared his opinions on television, sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry. In 2012, during an interview on Fox News, Walker surprised the audience when he bluntly said, "I've never voted for a Democrat in my life." This was more than a political statement. It seemed like a declaration of war in a Hollywood long considered a bastion of progressive ideals. In the years that followed, Walker continued to express his conservative views. He repeatedly expressed admiration for Ronald Reagan, describing him as a president who knew how to inspire and bring hope to America. What drew even more attention was Walker's open praise for Donald Trump, stating that he considered him a practical Republican and believed his policies were more suitable for black people, a stance strongly at odds with most voices in the African-American artistic community. His comments provoked a deep division. Many saw Walker as a contrarian, even labeling him a traitor to collective ideals. In forums and in the press, countless articles raised the same question. Why would a black sitcom star align himself with a party so often accused of being out of touch with the community's needs? Among conservatives, however, Walker was celebrated. Many commentators hailed him as one of the rare voices brave enough to break through Hollywood's false consensus. In the 1970s, Walker was the shining star of Good Times, but by the 2000s and 2010s, his acting career had faded. His outspoken political statements made it even harder for him to find a place in Hollywood, a town that values consensus and following trends. Directors and producers often avoided mentioning Walker. Major talk shows rarely invited him, though he continued performing stand-up shows across many states. The name Jimmie Walker slowly disappeared from mainstream entertainment spotlights. But what's impressive is that Walker never showed regret. On the contrary, he declared, "I live by what I believe. If Hollywood doesn't like it, I'm fine with that. I won't change just to be loved." It was the statement of a man fully aware of the price of being different. He accepted being avoided, accepted lost opportunities, but refused to compromise his beliefs. Walker also drew attention with his views on same-sex marriage. In a 2012 CNN interview, when asked about the topic, then one of the nation's most heated debates, he clearly responded, "Personally, I'm not a fan of gay marriage. But at the same time, if it becomes law, I won't fight against it." It was a statement that revealed both his personal stance and his respect for the law. On affirmative action, in several interviews, Walker stated that it was necessary at one point, but that point had passed. For him, the policy served its purpose in the decades after the civil rights movement, but continuing it would only create dependency and reverse discrimination. His words hit a nerve in the black community. Many accused him of forgetting his roots and denying the benefits of a policy that once helped black people advance. Others argued that Walker was brave enough to tell an uncomfortable truth, that it was time to compete based on merit. In his personal life, Jimmie chose an equally unconventional path. In countless interviews, he remained firm, repeating his most surprising line, "I've never been married. I don't have children. And that's how it's going to be." This wasn't a joke, but a conviction he maintained for decades, no matter how much curiosity or speculation it aroused. In a Hollywood overflowing with luxurious weddings and high-profile divorces, Walker was almost a total exception. Of course, this doesn't mean Walker never had romances, and the press often speculated about his love life. The most talked about and controversial rumor was his alleged relationship with Ann Coulter, the well-known conservative political commentator. In the early 2000s, major outlets like People and the New York Post reported that Jimmie Walker and Ann Coulter were secretly dating. The story spread quickly because the pair seemed so unlikely. A black actor who was the face of a beloved 70s sitcom, and a sharp-tongued conservative pundit known for igniting heated debates. The rumors gained strength when Norm Macdonald, a famous comedian, casually revealed on a talk show, "Ann Coulter is dating Jimmie Walker." That single line instantly transformed gossip into national headlines. Both Walker and Coulter kept things vague. In a later interview, Ann Coulter said, "Jimmie is one of the best people I've ever met. He's kind, funny, and authentic." Walker, however, remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. What shocked the public even more was Walker's complete lack of regret about his decision to live without marriage or children. When asked about it, he frankly replied, "Marriage isn't for me. I don't see myself being a husband or father." For many, this was disconcerting. How could a man who was famous across America, wealthy and talented, choose to live alone? But for Walker, it didn't seem like sadness. It was freedom. He once explained, "I see so many of my colleagues get married, then divorced, then miserable. I don't want that. I don't want to take on responsibilities I know I can't carry." public opinion was divided. Some saw Walker as a Hollywood oddity, a star with no interest in love, marriage, or children. Others considered him a symbol of honesty, someone unafraid to live differently, refusing to bow to social norms. The catchphrase, "Dynamite," carried Walker from a poor childhood in the Bronx to national stardom. But it also trapped him in the overwhelming shadow of J.J. Evans. From there, his career seemed to follow a downward curve. There were still laughs and performances, but never again the explosive heights of his past. The 1980s brought Walker some opportunities, but none strong enough to redefine his name. In 1980, he appeared in the satirical blockbuster Airplane, a huge box office hit. Although it was just a supporting role, his presence was enough to make audiences applaud upon hearing his unmistakable voice. He continued appearing in sitcoms like The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, and later, The Drew Carey Show and Scrubs. Occasionally, he was invited to major talk shows to repeat his famous "Dynamite" catchphrase. But these were just scattered bright spots, never enough to bring him back to the center stage of Hollywood. With fewer acting roles, Walker returned to his roots, the stand-up stage. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he toured the United States, performing in small clubs, casinos in Las Vegas and Atlantic City, and even theaters with just a few hundred seats. Compared to the millions of viewers from the Good Times era, the scale was modest. But for Walker, it was proof that he still mattered. As he himself said, "Television can forget you. But if I get on stage and people still laugh, then I still exist." The laughter of a small club audience didn't echo like the applause on CBS, but it kept Walker connected to the craft that lifted him out of the Bronx, the gift of making people laugh. The bitter reality was that audiences still loved Jimmie Walker, but mainly loved J.J. Evans from the 1970s. Each time Walker took the stage, they weren't waiting for a new routine, but waiting for him to shout "Dynamite." Walker admitted, "I've never escaped J.J. Evans. I know that, and I've learned to accept it." So, regardless of new projects or tours, Walker remained a faded legend, remembered, but never entirely present. At 78, when many stars of his generation have long since stepped away, Jimmie Walker continues to surprise with his persistence. Although far from his peak, he still performs stand-up shows, participates in small film projects, and continues to connect with audiences with his characteristic blunt honesty. According to public sources, Walker's net worth is estimated at around $800,000, with other outlets reporting between $500,000 and $1.5 million. While this pales in comparison to the multi-million-dollar fortunes of his contemporaries, it's enough to live comfortably, especially for an artist who chose to go against the grain in his career and personal life. What stands out is that Walker never flaunted luxurious mansions or luxury cars. Instead, he's remembered for his simplicity, living modestly and focusing on his craft and passion, rather than pursuing extravagances. Instead of retiring, he continues traveling the stand-up circuit, from small clubs in Las Vegas and Atlantic City to special events, like his 2025 double bill with comedian Lenny Clark in Martha's Vineyard. He still takes the stage, still chasing the familiar sound of laughter. Even after 70, Walker refuses to fade away. In 2025, he appeared in the film Forgotten Fortune, shot in Oklahoma alongside Lou Fino. It wasn't a lead role, but marked a significant return to the screen. After years of appearing mainly in documentaries, Walker joked, "I joined late. I didn't know the whole script, but I still love being in front of the camera." He also revealed he's preparing a new book reflecting on his career and his views on political correctness, which he claims has made comedy more difficult than ever. If published, it would follow his 2012 memoir, Dynamite, Good Times, Bad Times, Our Times, and would undoubtedly ignite new controversies. Beyond film and writing, Walker remains present in community activities. In 2024, he participated in the Sunbus Dermatology campaign promotion, offering free skin cancer screenings. Though modest, These efforts demonstrate his continuing desire to engage with the public in different ways. Walker doesn't own multi-million-dollar mansions or flashy cars, opting for a simple lifestyle, often moving according to his tour schedule, residing in temporary apartments in the cities where he works. Recently, during the filming of Forgotten Fortune, he lived in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, a clear sign of his flexible and unpretentious life. Jimmie Walker won't leave behind expansive properties or a long resume of leading roles. What he leaves is a short catchphrase, but one powerful enough to be etched in the memory of a generation. Dynamite. That laugh, though debated, proves that Walker touched the public in a way no one else could. A life lived against the current. A life lived alone, but lived by his own choice. Hollywood may no longer shine its spotlights on Walker, but each time laughter erupts in a small club, each time Dynamite resurfaces on YouTube, Jimmie Walker lives on not as a dazzling star, but as an immortal symbol in the history of American television.